Makes me nervous, isn't that a terrible thing? For those of you that don't know me, my name's Chris Crossley.
Come on. Sorry. Absolutely.
Good, come on in.
Excuse me?
Come on, hello. You get the front row whether you want it or not.
We get the front row.
Most people know me as the director of the Sea Turtle Conservation Project over the last 10 years for the Friends of Hunting Island. And I wanted to welcome everybody today because it was very nice of Jonathan Hott and the Pat Conroy Center to let us have this space today to celebrate a book that's long overdue. I think when the Friends started in 1993, no one would have imagined that what's been accomplished could have ever happened. But we have with us today a gentleman that indirectly started it all. He's sitting in the back row. And when we think of Hunting Island, I think all of us have different feelings about the wild wind, the gentle winds, the wild water, Hurricane Matthew, the gentle water, the sun rises, the sun sets from the beach and boardwalk, wildlife, Jurassic Park. You put it all together and I think we get a wild spirit. And I think Carol's work of gathering it all together when we did the visitor center a couple years ago and working with SCPRT, I think we were able to capture that wild spirit. And Ray Stevens spent his life, not all of it, but a good chunk of it, working for the parks before my time. But he ended up as the manager of all the coastal parks. And so he has a lot of stories about the wildness of Hunting Island, and I'm really hoping that he could share a few of those with us, particularly the one about the beginning of the Friends of Hunting Island and how he met a couple people on the beach and said, hey, you want to start a turtle project? And believe it or not, they did. So Ray, could you come up and share some stuff with us?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invite to come and speak. It's funny, I was thinking about 2 minutes ago, the first picture of me ever on Hunting Island was captured in February of 1960. And I wish I would have thought about to bring it, but my parents carried us to our first trip when I was born anyhow, carried us there, and would have never known years later that we'd have gone back and started with the Park Service. I started working at Hunting Island in high school, working there during the summers of high school, and loved the job so much that I became a full-time park ranger. And for the next 14 years, the way the park system works, if you want to move up the promotional ladder, you have to move around to different parks and take different positions so you learn more. So that's what we did for 14 years. We moved around to different parks. And then when Hunting Island superintendent position came open, I went, because I knew by my second year in the Park Service, I wanted to go back and be the superintendent of Hunting Island.
Oh, wow.
So worked at it, and by the grace of God, we went and moved back to Hunting Island as superintendent, and that was in 1991. Would stay there for the next 15 years. And during that 15 years, I think the book title really captures it. It was a wild island. From a nature standpoint, I can remember days that I would, because to be a park ranger, you usually have to live on the park. That's part of the requirement, because you're on the job 24/7. But there was mornings that I would get up and to go in the bathroom to take a shower, and I would turn the water on. And if I had low water pressure, that means someplace erosion took out a small water line. Usually about a 2-inch water line. If I got up in the morning and turned the valve on and had no water, that means a big water line was blowing out someplace. So I usually get on the radio and call the ranger when I'm early in the morning, and I say, okay, I need you to go to this location and see if that water pipe broke last night. And a little bit later, as I started getting dressed, he would call and say, yep, it's busted. I said, okay, go to this valve and turn it off. So you would learn little things of that and that wild nature that you had to deal with. Or you go in the morning and you see half a cabin gone.
Wow.
During my tenure as the superintendent for 15 years, I counted up one time that we lost, I think it was 33 buildings, 2 roads, I think it was like 40-something campsites, because the erosion keeps going. Now, am I the only superintendent that went through that? No. Every superintendent that's ever been in Hunting Island has had to fight that battle. So it was nothing new. So I remember one time I said something to one of the park directors. He said, suck it up, Ray. He said, every superintendent's going through it. And I went, okay. He had a good way of putting things in perspective like that for you just to do your job. But it was just a great job because, like I said, you never knew what you were going to get. You never knew what was going to happen. And you never knew what you get to see. Because I remember a time of out paddling in the lagoon in a kayak, and you look over and you see the dolphins running the fish up on the bank. You never get tired of that. You never once. The only thing it does is make you want it more. And then you get, as I look through this book and I see the photos, and I think about, man, they captured so much of it. They captured, because like I say, not only 15 years as superintendent, then I had another 12 years as a regional chief, like I said, because I had the whole coast. So for 27 years of my life, we were involved with Hunting Island as an employee, not just the ones that were fun times where I just got to enjoy the beach without the responsibility. But you go and you look and you think about, as I flipped through history, my mind kept coming back. Things that I remember seeing. You look, like I said, just so much. I'm so proud of what you did to capture Hunting Island. Because it wasn't just one piece of Hunting Island. It was the whole thing. And then you think about the Friends group, I think about, oh man, we would have never known in '93 what you would have accomplished. Look at the license plate. How many times you were sitting in a stoplight and you look and you see a Hunting Island license plate? I'll tell you how that came about. I wanted to do a state park license plate, so I wrote it up and sent it to Columbia, and they shot this thing down.
What a surprise.
And I'm like, what? I said, this is a way we can get on the back of cars across South Carolina, we can get, South Carolina state parks. And they said, nah, we don't think it would go. Okay. So Roberta Gunderson, who was the president of Friends Group at the time, she was in my office, and I said, look, I got this idea. And I said, parks won't do it. Let me see what y'all think about it. So I gave her the idea. She says, well, sounds good to me. She says, let me take it back to the board and see what they want to do. You see what they did.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't think that would get done. And it's funny, once the wheels started going, guess who came back and talked to me about wanting to do it? The state parks came back and said, hey, we think we want to get in on the idea. I said, hey, look, it's too late. This ball is rolling. And I'm not about to get in the way of it. So I think about, the things like that. You think about, look at the things that have been done around the lighthouse. You look at the things that have been done in the visitor center. And then you go back to the sea turtle program. I tell you, honestly, that was done out of selfishness. Because while it's a great program, we were working poor Ranger Mike to death.
Yes, you were.
Mike Walker, he's now an interpretive ranger at Huntington Beach State Park. Mike's a Beaufort native. Matter of fact, his father was one of my teachers in school. But poor Mike was working himself to death with the turtles. He was getting up early in the morning, getting out going to turtles, and then he was doing programs throughout the day and into the night. And I said, Mike, we can't keep doing this. And Mike's passion for the turtles, he said, yeah, but I'm not going to give this up. So one day, Warren Dixon, bless his heart, we were talking, and I mentioned, probably jokingly, maybe not, about we need help with turtles. Can y'all help? Nobody wants to help with turtles. And from there, it took off. It ran. And I affectionately gave Warren a nickname, and that was Bulldog.
All right.
Anybody that knows Warren, you would know why he got that name. Because if you gave him something, he held on to it, and he ran with it, and he did what he needed to do to make sure it happened. And it's determination like that that makes Projects and the Friends go. And that's why you look at this book, and it's so wonderfully, because not only are the pictures beautiful, but the information that was captured in it to tell about the pictures and to show. And you can take this book to Greenville, South Carolina, and give it to someone in a classroom to sit down and read. And I'll guarantee you two things will happen. One, they will absorb the information and learn a lot about Hunting Island. And the second thing is, they will come to visit Hunting Island. Because you can't have a place like this and capture in a book like this that you want to inspire people. And people will be inspired to come. And we walk a fine balance in parks. And that is, a park can be loved to death. And that means you get so many people coming that it starts to hurt the park. I can remember, we used to have Cabin Road, which is now gone. It was a 2-mile long road. And people would go down there and park, and what they would do is, there was no designated parking, they just pull off on the side of the road. Well, what it does is starts wearing out the road shoulders. And then what happens? People get stuck, and then people get stuck, they gotta have somebody pull them out. So we said, okay, and then they were leaving trash behind. And then the other part of it is they started making trails through the woods just from foot traffic. So I went down there, and we had put up some signs about no parking. I went down the road trying to enforce it. And this man says, well, why do y'all make the paths? And I was like, excuse me? He goes, well, y'all make these footpaths for us. And I said, oh, no, sir, we didn't make them. People made them by the constant wear. He goes, really? So it was an educational point, not only for him, but for me, on what loving to death can do and what it can start. And you ever heard a thing about graffiti breeds graffiti?
Oh, yeah.
It's true. But it's the same thing about parks. When you start doing things at park, it keeps breeding more because one person sees it, 2 people see it, 3 people see it, and the next thing you know, everybody thinks it's common. So it's a way to educate people. And when they see this, hopefully it'll inspire them not to do those things and teach them to love the park for what it is and to protect it from what it is. Because, as we all know, one day it's not always the same. Hunting Island will always be there, but it may be in a different form. Never when everybody seen the little bridge on the south end of the island? The little footbridge you walk across? We thought we were smart when we put that in. And here's why. The head of the road kept washing up closer to South Beach. That's where the erosion kept coming and busting through. And so we had to patch it. So we said, okay, we need to have an emergency backup so if it ever breached at night, because we used to have 37 cabins on that road. And we thought about, okay, if it ever busts up here, we don't have a way to get these people off. So we created the bridge thinking that was going to be our access to the cabin area for emergency backup and maybe just for general use. Mother Nature fooled us. She breached further down and ended up taking the whole road. So one thing we learned, you can't outthink Mother Nature. Just like when the South Area Beach was built, 1985, in the early 80s to 85, we couldn't get people to go to South Beach. You know what they said? It's too far from the beach. Because you could ride through South Beach and not see the ocean. There was 100-foot boardwalks going out to the beach, literally hundreds of feet long.
Wow.
Going to the boardwalk. And then people would ask us, why did y'all build it so far from the beach? So we would start educating, well, because we're going to lose so much feet a year. And then when erosion came and finally the beach was up next to the bathrooms, people say, oh, why did y'all build it so close to the ocean? And we're like, we didn't. It's a wild place. And I won't bore you with these stories, but I can tell you stories after stories that people go wild on Hunting Island. because it's a place where people come to relax and enjoy and have fun. And that's why you look through here and you see people at the beach. You see them come to the beach by the busloads. That's what we're about. We're here to serve. But I keep saying we. I'm retired, but I did it for 40 years in that job. So it'll always be we. But we're there to serve people. We're there to protect the environment, but more important, we want you to enjoy the environment. Because there's so many places anymore that you can't get to. They won't let you get to them. So it's a way to invite people to Honey Island. And I think this book does something to show them the specialness of Honey Island. And I'd say, I give them just one more thing and I'll shut up for you, because I can stand and talk for hours. We as the Park Service tried to do a book one time. Because the wrong people got into it. It started off with a great idea, but the wrong people got into it and it failed miserably. It was a book that did not show South Carolina State Parks as best it could. It was trying to be nice. It was put together for the wrong motives. And that's why it failed. This book will succeed because it was put together for the right motives and in the right way. And the people that took the photos, photographers,
Yeah.
thank y'all. You did a wonderful job. It's absolutely gorgeous. Y'all worked beautifully. Carol, to capture the pictures, capture the information, put it all together, be proud. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray. I wish I'd actually interviewed you a little more. There's some things I could have put in the book that you just I'll just quickly say, someone asked me if I was going to read from the book at this signing, and I said, absolutely not. I just want to tell you, I know you won't read the whole book, but you should, as Ray said. The best 3 pages are 18, 19, and 20. That is a description of an 1870s trip from Edisto to Honey Island. And what it gives you is an idea of how important Honey Island was way back for centuries. It was the Honey Island. And this story has some twists and turns that make it very interesting, but it's in a 1920s edition of Rumbling of the Chariots by I. Jenkins Michael. And the last chapter is called Beyond the Breakers. The book itself is about the Civil War, so it was written right after the Civil War. I found out about it from Roger Pinckney. Does anyone know Roger Pinckney? Yeah, he's a writer and lives on Defusky. He's Mr. Defusky, I guess. He sent an email to Friends of Honey Island in the fall of 2020 when we were working on the book. And he said, could anyone tell me the first name of the superintendent of the CCC on Honey Island, CCC Civilian Conservation Corps, on Honey Island in the 1930s and 40s? And the communication director sent it to me and said, good luck with this one. I have the information right in front of me. So I took a picture of it and sent it to Roger, and then we had this conversation about the book, and he said, well, you've got to see this chapter at the end of The Rumbling of the Chariots. And I condensed it into 3 pages. It was much longer. And I also had to change some of the language because it's right after the Civil War, so you can imagine. The reason Roger was interested in it, I think he was writing his autobiography, but his grandmother had an affair with Thomas Rutledge. His grandmother was working on the Federal Writers Project and interviewing formerly enslaved people. But she was camping with her 2 children on Honey Island and met Thomas Rutledge, who happens to also be the brother of Archibald Rutledge, who was the poet laureate for South Carolina for 40 years. Wow. And she was a pioneering female journalist, and she ended up writing several books. But so she had an affair with Thomas Rutledge. Thomas is not Roger's grandfather, but his mother was also on the island. She went with her mother, Clotilde Rowell Martin is her name. And one of the CCC enrollees was wooing her, but she repelled him, and anyway, nothing came of it. But it's part of it. It'll be in Roger's next book. So that's how he told me about this book. And he's apparently related in some way to I. Jenkins Michael, who wrote that little section on those 3 pages. So be sure to read that if nothing else. And thank you all for coming so much. And let us know. Do you have any questions or comments or anything?
I will tell you, on that section you just talked about, that was learning to me for 2 reasons. One, I knew about CCZs, knew about Rutledge as the project superintendent, because he was also the one at Eddystone when I was there, because I worked at that park as well. And then later on I was in charge of Hampton Plantation, which Archibald Rutledge owned. And on none of the history that I've read was that story ever told. So when I was reading it here, I went, "Oh, dog, boy, I learned something new about the Rutledge." So that was just, like I said, more information than I knew. So it's great.
Well, okay, thank you all for coming, and let us know, there's refreshments right next door, drinks and food, so please help yourselves, and if you want a book, we're happy to sell a book or 2, so I'll be right here.
Thanks, Ray. That was
Thank you.